Hello and welcome to this video on the Veno Echo, a powerful and creative stereo delay for your rack systems. We're going to push and pull it through kind of standard echo uses and some pretty non-standard ones as well. So let's check out what's to come. This video is sponsored by Venus Instruments. Now the Veno Echo is a crossfading delay, meaning it's one that will crossfade its time parameters rather than introduce pitch modulations and artifacts, meaning we're free to really just go to town on modulating its delay times. We can control delay times right from Karplus Strong mode if you want to get into this kind of super fast audio rate plucked string sound, right through to a full minute of delay buffer. You can use it as a looper, or a Frippertronics degrading tape style looper, or do that in reverse even. We have filters we can put in its feedback paths, drives, downsampling. We can play around with width controls and really push and pull where these two delay channels are in the stereo field. There's CV over nearly everything, and all the controls are right there on the panel. There's the tap button, which is your clock, and that's also your shift button to access all these extra parameters, which are just labelled in square brackets on the panel. So it's easy to use, mega powerful and mega sculptable for finding your own tone and effect within the module. Running down the controls here on the Veno Echo, we have our stereo in and stereo out. We then have time controls, which are independent per side with their CVs. Feedback controls, again with CVs independent per side. And we have our tap or clock input, and that can be in a sync mode or free mode. And that sync mode will make the times work as musical divisions and multiplications, and the free mode offers fully variable timing from being in sync with the clock or tap at center, and then varying for musical pushes, pulls, and kind of drags. We have cross feedback, which will feed that wet feedback signal from one side to the other and vice versa. We have a width control, allowing you to pass the left delay to the left output and right to the right. Blend the delays into mono, so both sides are mono, they appear the same on that side and the other. Or going kind of anti-stereo, where you cross-feed, so the left delay comes out of the right and the right delay out of the left. And that's a modulatable parameter there on that width input. We have a mix, again with a CV control, and a filter crossfade, allowing us to use these filters in parallel, going from fully dry, unfiltered processing through to filtered processing, and the effects order there, which we access by holding shift, as we do all of those square bracketed functions, and that effects order gives us 3 different routings for where these filters appear, before or after the drive, and in the feedback loop for example. Other shift functions, which we access holding that tap, which is the shift button, are downsampling, going from pristine high quality sound down to crunchy alias rich lo-fi sound. We have the high pass and low pass filter cutoffs, which again controlled by shift. Drive is on that right hand time knob. The effects order as discussed on filter crossfade. Our onboard modulation for modulation rate is on the shift function there, and the width control is bipolar. Going to the right of centre, this will introduce a triangle LFO at the rate you set. Then going left of centre, this will introduce a smooth random modulation, more akin to something like the wow in terms of wow and flutter on a tape delay. We have external modulation as well, which you can blend in with this modulation or use separately. We have reverse buffers, which are independent per side and accessible via gate signals on inputs there as well. And finally, that mix has its shift function as resonance. So if you'd like to add resonance to these filters, you can do so under that mix control. The final switch and control here is low pass, both filters in series, and high pass, so you can switch out that filtering. And it's a really powerful set of controls that's all accessible either on the front panel directly or simply by holding shift. There's no menus, it's easy to use. So let's get into some patches. As you've seen on screen, there's quite a lot of them, and not only explore the kind of sonic range of the Veno Echo, but really look at what we can do with delays in a modular system. Let's dive in. So this is a relatively simple patch, but one just to explore and demonstrate this idea of a crossfading delay. And that's the delay times that crossfade when moved or modulated, as opposed to repitching. Meaning for me in musical practice, I'm free to modulate the delay time without any kind of artifact, and I can have these delays bouncing around all sorts of different musical divisions. That's what's happening here. If I was to remove the modulation, this simple sequence, this is clocked twice as fast. Basic, clean, digital delay. Add some modulation of the time. We have a mono input with these dancing stereo randomly shifting delay times. So let's look at kind of customizing and creating our own sound with the delays from scratch. Now here's my dry sound. I'm going to hold shift, clear the drive, and start from a clean slate. And with a quarter note clock here and the time set in the middle, let's set a delay time on each side. Eighths and 16ths, bouncing around there against this beat. Now going fully wet, let's drive, colour and filter this. So I'll hold shift for drive, and then I'll high pass to get rid of some of this kind of overly saturated low end. Add some crunch with some downsampling. Reduce some highs. So it's really quick and simple to sculpt, drive, filter, downsample these delays and create your own sound against whatever your dry input may be. So here I'm playing around in the free mode. So here's my dry sound that's coming in, and with the times set in the middle, and my clock playing in time with this arpeggio. Just kick the reverses off. We have a standard clocked delay. In free mode, these will just freely and variably move. I'd certainly grab some headphones if this isn't becoming obvious. We can kind of really subtly drag out that timing so it's just a bit behind the clock or a bit in front. You can hear they're perfectly in time there. We're now fully wet. We can just kind of drag them out and use this kind of pushing and dragging and free moving, but still clocked delay. Now here I wanted to see if I could turn the Veno Echo into a, quote, tape style delay, and reverse tape reel loop while we're at it. Now this is really leaning into some of the effects you find in, say, the pedal world, where we have all these lo-fi, tape, grungy, murky effects that are generation losing, so we say. And it's done a really good job here with the Veno Echo. Now my sound is split out into this mixer. Here's the dry, it's just a keyboard instrument that I've built up and composed on the computer. And the reason for splitting dry and wet here is that I want to use both effects in mono and mix them back together. Here's my first echo on the left. I just tapped in a time, set that going, and I've adjusted drive and filtering and that random modulation to give this tape-like effect. And it's that bit more driven, that bit more murky than you might like. But my tape delays I have here probably all need servicing and are quite grungy and murky. It's a sound that I like. That's panned in mono in this mixer. The other output is a longer delay time, shares the filtering and drive, and it's reversed. There's modulation of panning. So the mono left side against the panning right side. One trick I'm using here is to use noise to modulate the mod CV, and if I turn that up full, you can hear this kind of fluttering, so the onboard modulation models that kind of wow of tape moving around and not being quite mechanically perfect, and the noise gives these little flutters into that mod CV. I'm blending some noise into my mixer. It's already been modulated. I'm trying to emulate something moving around tape here. It's a little bit of noise in the background. My noise modulated delays and reverse loop panning around. Dry on top. And I've taken a little bit longer to explain this as it's a personal indulgence in tape delay, but there's an extended tape emulation technique video. There's this patch expanded out and really kind of gone through more detail for Patreon supporters. So head over there and support if you'd like access to that exclusive video. Now modulating delay time on any kind of standard echo effect gives a chorus-like kind of warm thickening to the sound. But I wanted to try use the Veno Echo as a standard chorus modulation effect. Here's a dry looping granular piano. And there's a lush kind of wide, warm chorus effect. Now an even better example would be on just a held chord sound, but I really like that piano so I wanted to throw that in the video. Here's just a held chord, fully dry. And then chorusing it. These warm, lush chorusings, as if chorusing is a verb. Lush chorusings with the Veno Echo. But as an extension of this idea of making a chorus, a simple fast delay that's internally modulated, we can go kind of mad supersaw. Now here's a sequenced oscillator, saw wave coming in mono. As I then add this modulated fast delay, you get this big thick unison chorusing. Kind of sounds like that big supersaw stack of waves. Now being here as a chorus effect that's giving us this, we can do it to any waveform. The faster the modulation, the more out of tune this unison stack would sound. The slower, the more in tune this kind of pseudo stack of oscillators will sound. Let's go back to a saw, close down my VCA and add an envelope. Big Supersaws stack again, some reverb, and you can put your hands in the air like you're Jesus behind a set of turntables. So here I'm going to use the Veno Echo like a DJ style looper beat masher. It's quite a convoluted utility to set up, it's not a looper and a beat masher, but it works as one that's good fun. Here I'm feeding sound into Veno Echo, and here I'm blending between the dry beat in my mixer and the output of the echo. And you can hear it works really well. Now because the Veno Echo is a delay, it's not a typical looper where you stomp on and off loops, the input is always open, so if I blend across to this in my mixer and I was to leave the input being fed a signal, it just adds up, and just turns to mush really quickly. Now you can clear the Veno's echo buffer by pressing and holding all three buttons. It's also coming into this filter here. So with that open, if I feed some sound in, set to 100% feedback or near enough, so getting this sound looping round. And I can blend across to it. Now clearing that loop, let's play with some different lengths, kind of little loops and grabs here. And it's incredible fun, firing some sound in, not actually being able to hear it, and you have to keep clearing it every time. It's a bit convoluted, as I say. And because I'm feeding the sound in, as I have done there, you can kind of ride in these weird patterns. I get some really quite weird, interesting little grabs of this beat. It's good fun. This is the Karplus Strong mode in the Veno Echo. And there's no button combo or menu to get into this mode. You simply clock it above 16 Hz. Now Karplus Strong is this idea of using little bursts and impulses to excite a delay line to create plucked string-like sounds. This is my input. And my impulse here is just white noise through a VCA with some modulation of the decay time. As this comes into this Karplus Strong delay line, now I'm going to make this much shorter, this input noise, Feedback is effectively the kind of energy in this note length. It's a decay control in this instance. And what we put in the feedback path, which in terms of how I've set my effects order is these filters, will really quite radically change the sound. Not just the tone, but the note length is changing. Now the time input in this mode on both sides become VOP proctive inputs, and the actual time knobs become fine-tune controls. So adding a VOP proctive sequence, and that's all you need to get going. A short burst of noise, or it could be an oscillator waveform, it could be a snare drum, something just short and percussive to excite this delay line. I can still downsample this. The reverse buffers still work. So here I want to explore using this not really as a delay, but a kind of standalone drive, saturator, filter, kind of stereo non-delay effect if you like. This is currently a sine and a triangle. Let's drive these, shift and time there. Really nice thickening for those basic sine and triangle waves. Add some downsampling, some filtering, and then add some resonance to the filter, keeping shift held here for these shift functions. Ooh, the resonance pushes that low end nicely. Maybe a bit of modulation. We've definitely a completely different colour. Hitting play on my sequence. It's really kind of nice lo-fi sound here. Play with feedback. So I'm having fun here with what started as looking for these kind of like robotic fast delays, and then I've gone full on kind of stepped random mental with 6 stepped random voltages modulating everything. This is the dry beat, there's some probabilities, so it's varying over time. Now in the free mode, let's tap in a fast clock. Simply just a really quick finger tap there. Go to a fast delay time. And this is kind of where I wanted to start with this patch, that nice robotic fast delay. Where this got more fun was in this modulation. And because mix is being modulated, that's going to bring in these swells of full-on mad modulated delay. When it's more subtle like that, it's kind of this exciting glitch in the background. And I've been jamming on this for ages. I need to stop and actually crack on with making the rest of the video. So welcome to DivKid's world of wonkiness. So here's the effects on these drums on this separate channel, and it's just panned slightly to the left. Nice kind of modulated, churning reverse effect. Here's my dry bass sound, and here's its effect. And it's going through a little bit of reverb, which I'll cancel, which is a nice thing when you're using this as dual mono. You could have one side into another effect and build these bigger chains. And one thing I wanted to show here was how the width control works. which in standard position, fully clockwise. Here you can hear the beat coming out of the beat side, which just to prove a point is just that one, and you can hear the wet synth side on the right. Now, if I actually move the width across, both effects will go into mono, and that's just this right output. There's literally nothing else going on in the patch now. You can hear both sides are collapsed to mono. This keeps the sides intact, and this flips them. So my dry sound is the synth, but I'm actually getting this side's effects, and vice versa. Normal position, drums just on this side, just this effect. I go through mono, where both sides come down to both outs in mono, and actually swap the sides around entirely. So you can see there how that width control kind of pans the delay around and collapses it through mono relative to what's on the left and right dry inputs and outputs, and using it like a dual mono unit. So here I'm going to use this kind of complex modulated wavetable sound. This is set with some filtering, some drive, some slight modulation. I'm going to use it like this degrading looper. One side is reversed, one isn't. High feedback, but not enough to make a constant loop. It's going to degrade over time. As one sound decays away, it's nice to kind of let another set of chord tones and different note choices fade into this decaying loop. Let's clear this and clean it up just to show that it doesn't have to be so murky. And you can hear we can retain much more of a clean representation of this input, bringing the effects fade down, cancelling out any drive and modulation. So here I'm clocking this above 16 Hz to get into Karplus Strong mode. I'm going to offset the delay times with some external voltage here, and just rag the feedback around and use it as a kind of solo stereo noisemaker. Ragging delays around is always good fun. So here I wanted to make a Duophonic Karplus Strong synthesis plucked string patch. Left and right, panned left and right, with a melody and a bass line, all from the Veno Echo. Now the first thing to explore is cross feedback. Not only can this be duophonic, we can cross feedback both sides, which gives some killer It's got this really rubbery kind of doink, doink on that first note in the patch. Kind of rubbery. Can you be rubbery and metallic? I think crossfeed back in the Karplus Strong mode can. But the thing I've done here is to treat these as if they're just oscillators. So the higher line comes into a filter and some effects, giving us quite a different sound. The filter's envelope modulated with the same envelope that's bringing in that burst of noise. And the right side is going through some distortion, tape emulation, lo-fi bit crushing. In fact, I'm going to blend a -1 volt signal in with my pitch here to drop this down an octave. Ooh. And I'll just change that first note, it's a bit too low. Don't forget there's these extra exclusive Patreon videos to come, which will be linked down in the description, and that's accessible by supporting me for as little as $1 a month, gaining access to exclusive PDFs, videos, patchbooks, and the DivKid Discord community. Hit like and subscribe, it makes a huge difference in helping around here. I'll see you next time. Bye.